It was the dawn of the third age of podcasting, 30 years after the series had launched.
The Babylon podcast was a dream given form. Its goal, to discuss the place where humans and aliens could work out their differences peacefully.
It's a port of call, home away from home for established fans, newbies, John, Blaine, and guests.
Humans and aliens wrapped in 2,500,000 tons of spinning metal, all alone in the night.
It could be a dangerous place.
Wait, what?
But it's our last, best hope for peace.
This is the story of the last of the Babylon stations.
The year is 2024.
The name of the podcast is
Babylon 5, 30 years later.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Babylon 5, 30 years later. This is a podcast where Blaine and I are taking a look back at every single episode and piece of tie-in fiction that we can find for the classic 1990s science fiction drama Babylon 5. Say hi, Blaine.
Hi, Blaine.
And I'm John. And we are here to look at Season 3, Episode 7, Exogenesis. And I'm only here doing this because I'm being controlled. I don't know why you're here, but this is part of a better life and seeing the world in a better way. So it's a good thing I'm here.
Okay, well, I was here to figure out where you were going because you're not where I usually find you. I mean, I can go to your regular haunts, and we got brand new Superman comics on the shelf, and you're not there. It worries me.
Even though I told you I would be there this morning, I'm not there.
Yes.
Too busy thinking about sunsets and other planets. So, yeah, the episode today is, it's, I think, our first Marcus-heavy episode, which was kind of surprising. By the way, I just saw him on Lois and Clark. So, Mindy and I have been watching through Lois and Clark Season 2 alongside my Superman read-through, and I'm in early 1995 with that. So, we finished Season 2 this week. And in the next to last episode of Season 2, the actor who plays Marcus, whose name has escaped me, is in that episode.
Jason Carter.
Jason Carter. He's a bit of a git in that Superman. There's a huge speaker about to fall on a stage, and Jason Carter's character is standing on the stage, messing with his guitar, completely oblivious. He has headphones on, so he can't hear anybody shouting, "It's falling! It's falling! It's about to fall!" So Superman flies in and grabs him, and in the process injures the guy's hand. He's like, "I was going to be a rock star. I was on my way up, and now I'll never play again," because his hand is irrevocably broken. And basically it turns into a story of people trying to take legal advantage of Superman by pretending injury. His hand was injured, but not nearly as bad as he made it out to be. And his wife in that he was horrible to the entire time. Didn't even like to say publicly that they were married. Always slapping her down verbally, and was just a terrible person. So since then, he has learned to be better now that he's joined the Rangers. And yeah.
Okay.
So that's a little bit of a little Jason Carter, what he was doing. I said early 1995, right? So just a few months before this.
Yes, because this one is early 96.
Okay, so a year before this. And we get the dates up right now. Yeah, because this Exogenesis was released on or about February 12th, 1996, which is why you're hearing this new on February 12th, 2026, even though that's 2 years in the future. And the writer, of course, is J. Michael Straczynski. The director is Kevin G. Kremen. And help me out, Blaine. Have we heard that name before? Because I'm not ringing a bell with it.
Yes, we have. We haven't talked about him much in his role as production manager, which he serves for 38 episodes in these first two seasons.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, I do see him on A Spider in the Web and Confessions and Lamentations and Matters of Honor. So over the last few months, he's done 3 episodes.
Yes, this is his actual 4th of 5 episodes directing Babylon 5. He's got one more in season 3.
Okay. And we've talked about J. Michael Straczynski a little bit before. He's the writer. We'll see his name again.
Yeah, he's come up once or twice.
Yeah.
An episode.
An hour every 10 minutes. All right, so Exogenesis, like I said, it's kind of a Marcus heavy episode. There are two plot lines. The one that gives the title to the episode involves several different denizens of down below whom Marcus has befriended because he's in a new place. He's in a new home. He's trying to make friends and talk to people and get kind of a network of just, what's going on the station. Because as a ranger, he wants to have his finger on the pulse of the station. And several of the people that he's been talking to and befriending have been disappearing. We do see at the beginning of this episode, two people we don't recognize being really excited that a ship has arrived because they are on the ship and they're very excited about this. We also have a man in a scene full of people we don't know dying because there's a weird legged worm, kind of like the creature that crawls into Chekhov's ear in Star Trek II, but longer.
The city eel?
Yeah. Seeping into his skin, apparently, because it kind of like fades into his skin. And anyways, he dies of the process, and Franklin discovers that death. And that's sort of like a second half of the A plot. But Marcus is trying to figure out why his people are disappearing. He reports it to Garibaldi. Garibaldi completely blows him off. And I have things to say about that later. And so Marcus goes to Franklin. Now, Franklin was investigating that dead body and discovered some really bizarre tissues on a scan on the guy's spinal column. So he surgeries his way in there and finds living worms of some sort inside the man's spinal column. He's like, that's not supposed to be there. So Marcus and Franklin go and investigate the dead guy's room. And there is a hole in the wall where there's like spider webs or something blocking it. Anyways, they continue investigating and they end up getting caught up in this whole circle of just people we don't know, people we don't recognize who've been living on the station and down below, cast-offs of the public, civilization, who are they're basically invasion of the body snatchers. They have been embedding these worms in people. And the parasites, for lack of a better word, take over the mentality of the host. The host still exists in there, but doesn't really exert itself very much. And they're doing this for the betterment of the people, they say, because they can share all of their knowledge and experiences with the host. They insist that the host is amenable to the process, but neither Franklin nor Marcus is okay with that idea. And so one of the characters whom Marcus had befriended in a shop, we had a cute little conversation between them at the beginning of the show. He voluntarily gives up his parasite and then tells Marcus that, yes, it was all true. Whenever he was bonded to the parasite, he had access to all these other views of the galaxy, all these memories, all these things that the various hosts and everything had experienced before, very much, reminiscent of Trill experiences over on another show. And he has given that up to prove to Franklin and Marcus that it's all on the up and up. It's all willing. Problem is, he's kind of elderly and his constitution is too weak to take on another parasite. So he has given up this better way of living for the sake of the whole. So Franklin's like, okay, this is all very bizarre and very weird, but it seems to be legit. So if we can go through a controlled situation where I am vetting and interviewing potential hosts and everything, then we can continue this, because evidently this is the only way that the parasite race is going to survive, is if they continue to find hosts. So that all happens. Meanwhile, Junior Lieutenant David Corwin, he is a character whom we have just seen in the CNC and such multiple times ever since season 1, played by Josh Cox. He's one of the sort of startling pretty eyes. He gets promoted to full lieutenant, and there's a big celebration in the bar, and we see our bartender friend, whom we see occasionally. She's back for this episode, and they're all just toasting and celebrating Corwin's promotion. So Captain Sheridan is like, Ivanova, now that he's a full lieutenant, he might be getting in our way with all of our super secret anti-governmental stuff that we're doing. So maybe you could vet him and see if he would be amenable to joining our cause, or if he's going to be a problem that we're going to have to hide stuff from. So she goes up to Corwin later and is like, hey, want to come back to my place for some coffee and some private conversation? She doesn't say it like that, but he hears it like that. And so he thinks that Commander Ivanova has just asked him out on a date back at her place. So he goes and finds some synthetic roses for her and shows up at her quarters. He second thoughts the roses and puts them on the ground outside or something like that, because she sees them. She's like, who left these roses here? He's like, I don't know. She's like, who would waste all that money on synthetic roses? He's like, yeah, what a waste of a whole lot of money. And she's like, it's horribly romantic though. So whoever did it must have had some ideas. He's like, yeah, that guy. So anyways, they talk, and Corwin seems to be well-meaning, but also gung-ho Earth. And as far as she probes the conversation, because she has to be kind of, circumspect, she determines that he would probably choose Earth's concerns over what they're doing. And so she has to report back to the captain that he would not, he's not one of them. So the whole roses thing, though, has a bit of a capstone, because while Marcus and Franklin are in captivity with the parasite people, Marcus asks Franklin, hey, what's Ivanova like? And Franklin's like, for one, why are you asking this while we're facing our death? And for two, she is so far out of your league, it's not even funny. So later on at the end of the episode, they're all sitting around talking, and Franklin's like, yeah, just, say in passing that Marcus might like a second shot with you, because Marcus kind of feels like she's been brushing him off after initially being friendly. And she's like, oh, he must have left those roses. So she storms back to her quarters, grabs the roses out of the trash, finds him in the bar, slaps him down beside him and says, here, keep them, and storms off. Another scene we're going to have a conversation about, because I have questions. But that's basically it, unless I left out any salient plot points.
Well, one thing I would say from there is that when she slams him in front of Marcus, says keep them, and storms away, his response is, oh, thanks, I will. There's hope for us yet. So, complete opposite of the intended effect.
Right, but let's just start there. Why is she mad at him? She was flattered by the idea of somebody leaving her flowers. Why is she mad at him for doing it?
I think because she's already been sending the rejection signals and he's not listening. So she thinks he's persisting when she's already said give up, and he almost had, but now she thinks he hadn't.
Okay. We haven't seen him enough for me to have noticed any furtherance in that kind of dynamic with them. Last I remembered, she was kind of attracted to him whenever they first met, and we just haven't seen him for more than 10 seconds at a time since then, at least in my memory.
Yeah, we haven't seen a whole lot to build it. There's comments JMS had about the writing process on this one I'll get to.
Okay.
The only other sort of, just a couple of minor tweaks. The main one is that, I think because it speaks to character, Franklin didn't tell Marcus that Ivanova was way out of his league. He just told him, you are not even remotely her type. So it was not, right. It wasn't a quality judgment. It's just like, more like, you can be the best chocolate cake in existence, but she likes pie kind of thing.
But she has had het relationships before. So Franklin might be making a judgment call on that he doesn't actually know of. But
it could be, but yeah, she is canonically bisexual.
Right.
So.
And he just may only know a little bit about her and doesn't know everything about her. Yeah. So, yeah. Okay. Well, that makes sense.
So I think those are the main things. I don't know if I want to bring up the production thing now. We did mention Exogenesis a few weeks ago. This was the episode that Straczynski was writing when the crew went on strike. And as a union man, even though it was a different union, he stopped writing in solidarity until everything was resolved.
Okay.
Now, JMS absolutely hates outlines. He'd rather just envision the story in his head and work through it in his head over and over and over, generally writing notes. And then once he's got it sorted out, he will sit down and write it. He finds if he's written the outline, then he's already sort of solved the story problems, he's worked it out, and the passion is gone, so the finished product doesn't come out as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, he does not use outlines unless he absolutely has to.
and prefers just to work with notes. This time, the story was so fresh and so clear, he didn't have any notes. So when he took a week-long break to help resolve the strikes and came back to it, he found he had completely lost the thread of the story. And he had a choice. Either scrap it and restart from scratch, or just say, okay, I'm a professional, start working in it and hope he'd find it again. And he sat down and started working, and in his mind, he never really found it again. So he is much happier with the first half of this than the second half.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. It's an uneven episode. I wouldn't say that I love it. And I did look at its rating, which I don't really do very often. I did look at its rating in comparison to the rest of the season. And it's the second lowest rated episode of the season. So that made sense to me. We usually talk a little bit about the cast. So James Warwick played one of the alien hosts named Matthew. I believe was one of the alien hosts. I don't recognize the name.
Yeah.
He has been in a few things, but Doctor Who fans would know him from being a character in the Earthshock serial. He played a character named Scott, which I have not seen yet. But all the other stuff in here that he's done, I'm not familiar with. A lot of voice acting on things like Fantastic Four and Iron Man.
Yeah, he's the video game Qui-Gon Jinn.
Yeah.
And Earthshock is one of the better Peter Davison episodes. So
much more memorable in the show is Duncan, who's played by Aubrey Morris. And bringing up his page now, but my computer keeps freezing. It's very annoying. All the banners and everything on the MDib site just keep like getting in the way of my scroll. He was in A Clockwork Orange. He was in My Girl 2. He was in The Wicker Man. I never saw Clockwork Orange. It's one of those I need to see, but I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, it is... Kubrick is one of my favorite directors. It is one of those exceptionally well-made movies that's incredibly difficult to watch.
Okay.
So it's like...
like viscerally difficult?
Viscerally, yes. The lead character is unambiguously a villain when we meet him, and then he gets taken in by the government and forcibly turned into somebody else, which also has repercussions, and I won't say much more, okay. But no, they do everything they possibly can to make you hate the main character in the first 20 to 30 minutes.
He was in a Columbo episode in 1998. I don't know if you've seen Columbo from 1998.
I have seen every Columbo multiple times.
Okay.
So yes, Ashes to Ashes.
Yes. He was Fred on Ashes to Ashes. But yeah, he was very charming. He was very old uncle, more old uncle than grandfatherly, in my opinion. And yeah, liked him a lot. And the only other featured or co-star person there, I guess, Eric Steinberg as Samuel, and no, I'm sorry, there's like several different levels of guests. Normally we have like the main cast and then like some others, but there's like several different levels of guest people here. So Wiley Small played Jackie Lee. She was also in is that Jackie or Jacques?
They pronounced it Jackie.
Okay. She was one of the two people who noticed the ship coming in at the beginning. She was the only one in the group who had lines that I noticed. And then there are several co-stars like Joshua Cox as Corwin. And then there's several featureds, but we normally just stick to the people who are major to the episode.
Yeah. And it might be worth noting that Jackie Lee and Matthew Duffin were named for fans in that charity contest.
Oh, fun.
That I mentioned last time. And there's a couple of notable guest stars at the table when Franklin is discussing just the state of affairs, like a staff meeting with the med staff. Mm-hmm. The female doctor he spends most of his time talking to, like the one who's most involved in that conversation, will show up in another Babylon 5 related project down the road.
Okay.
And the actor who's inside the Kosh encounter suit is at the table referred to as Dr. Steinhoff.
Okay.
So we can see him without the
gear. That's Carrie Dobro as Dr. Harrison.
Yeah. So there's a budget for 4 typical guest stars per episode. Even though there's a few on the list, they made it because to count as an actual guest star, you have to have more than a set number of lines. And as you've already mentioned, some of them only have 1 or 2, so they're below that threshold.
Josh Cox is under co-starring, and he's had a lot more lines. But yeah, lots of featured actors. So anyways, this felt like a season 1 episode. This felt like nothing that has been happening in the furtherance of the show's plot gets mentioned, except for the fact that we're talking to Corwin to see if he can, join the anti-government group. But that's like a background element for the story more than the story itself. And I wasn't super keen on it. Now that Marcus has a lot to say, he has a lot to say, and he's a little bit obnoxious in this. Part of that is the point, because Garibaldi won't listen to him, which, by the way, I have never seen Garibaldi so dismissive of anything on this show. Does he not like Marcus? Is there an antipathy there that I was unaware of?
Not between the characters. The actors are at political extremes in real life, or they were at the time. Jerry Doyle is no longer with us. So JMS like to have fun with that, and they like to get under each other's skin with that. So in that scene, you'll notice that Garibaldi has an orange. In every single rehearsal take, he threw that orange at Marcus. And, so then Jason just caught it. It was unscripted. They kept running with it. When they were filming this one, he faked him out. So he jerked like he was throwing the orange, but he didn't, which just irritated Jason, and, which actually helped the scene. But yeah, I think there was a lot of the relationship between the actors that we haven't seen between the characters getting written into that moment, right? Because part of it to me was, I think it would have worked better had that scene not been in the Zocalo, because Jason is saying there's something unusual on your station. Let's look into it. And Garibaldi is saying it doesn't feel all that unusual, and I don't have time to look into it. But he seems like he's almost window shopping in the Zocalo. Like, had they been, or down below, had they made a point that he had come to see Marcus, I think it would have worked better if he was so busy in his security office that Marcus had to come see him. And they had that conversation with Garibaldi at his station doing work. It would have been more plausible. So it's less about Marcus and more about his actual workload on the day.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. It still feels very un-Garibaldi to me. He also doesn't feel like the type who would just blow off the denizens of down below just because they're down below. I feel like we've seen him have more of a heart than that. Or was it Sinclair who had a lot of people down below he was talking to? No, it's been Garibaldi. Garibaldi has, and it's come up in our books too.
Yeah.
Garibaldi befriends a lot of the down below people because he needs contacts with to help him follow the criminal element down there.
Yeah, and I would think with Garibaldi's personal history of having been at rock bottom, he would understand some of the people there and sympathize with their plight, because it's not a hard stretch to say that could have been me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I get that. I mean, it was nice to see Franklin and Marcus together. It's an unusual dynamic. Those are two characters who don't get as much screen time as the rest. Mm-hmm. So I like the fact that Garibaldi couldn't work with him was enough to draw Franklin out of MedLab, and we see a different element of Franklin. We see a different element of Marcus. Because normally when Franklin's coming out of MedLab, he's hitting on someone at the same time. And that didn't happen this week.
And Franklin has often been, irritable and everything from the stims. That's sort of been a background element. And they just kind of let that aside today because there's nothing super stressful hitting the MedLab today.
No, if anything, I don't know, we can play armchair quarterbacks. I think it would have been a little bit better if, as I said, the Garibaldi conversation happened in Garibaldi's office where he's swamped. Maybe, Zach or someone nameless and speechless coming in, handing him stuff he has to deal with, so you really feel the pressure. And then during the extended confinement, maybe have Franklin show some withdrawal symptoms as well, to just remind us that that's there.
True. Yeah, if Garibaldi were in the middle of a conversation, if he and Alan were talking about something, and we were in that conversation for 5 or 7 seconds, and then Marcus came in and was kind of barging in on things and interrupting their conversation, not really showing much care for the fact they're having a conversation because he's obsessed with finding, these people that are missing. And Garibaldi obviously needs to get back to what he was doing. All of that would have given situational cause for him to, give Marcus as much of a brush off as he did. As it is, just feels weird. But yeah, Franklin and Marcus, they interact with the station dynamic and the show plot dynamic from very different perspectives and different sides of that situation. So they probably wouldn't have much cause to interact. So having them do so here, I agree, was nice to see. the parasite people, like I said, it felt very invasive of the body snatchers. And it was also just kind of strange that the people were living their lives and doing their thing, and then all of a sudden decide to do this other thing, give their body to a parasite. All of a sudden, to the extent that they have appointments and commitments that they were supposed to be there for, that they just don't show up for without a word to anybody. They don't say anything to anyone. None of these people have loved ones. None of these people have, I guess some of them have a few friends, but they're not, I don't know, they're not accountable to anybody. So whenever they disappear, it's only if you happen to be in the habit of seeing them that you would notice that you didn't see them again.
Yeah, well, some of them are somewhat accountable to Marcus. So if they had, instead of just vanishing messages coming through third parties, I think it would have helped the Garibaldi end if these people had actually sent Marcus personal messages of goodbye saying, hey, you know what, the situation has changed, it's something new, just trust me, it's a good thing, I'm going to be happy, bye. Because if that starts happening 2 or 3 times, that's still going to send up Marcus as red flags, but that the fact that they said goodbye and told Marcus, yeah, we're leaving, this is what's going on, that part of the conversation might have helped keep Garibaldi's interest down.
Right.
Because he's saying, no, you have explanations for them.
It's just a series of very similar situations that each one by itself is only a little bit suspicious, but the trend is a lot suspicious.
Yeah, and it's also interesting to see the way Straczynski talks about it. Because I'm looking at 2 sources. There's the Asked and Answers book, and those were often broadcast day conversations he was having with fans on Usenet, whereas the script books were coming out after the series was said and done and released on DVD. And he seems to be a lot more down on it in the script books than he was in the original one. So originally Usenet, he said, honestly, it's just okay. And he didn't go into the details of the strike. He said there was something going on. It took my attention when I came back to it. It wasn't where I wanted to be. And he actually said he thought it might have been fine if it was season 1 or season 2, but for season 3, they had to keep raising the bar.
Yeah, this felt like the bar was not even being held.
So I would agree with him that the first half was stronger than the second. His biggest complaint is that it's finally resolved with just a big exposition dump with a sacrifice that could have been made at any point earlier. And I can see that, but yeah, some of it just...
And the whole goal of every episode leaving somebody changed. I don't really feel like that's something that happened this time out,
Yeah, well, he does say in the script book here, the episode was written with the intent to ask such questions as, what is sentience? What are we here to achieve? What constitutes a life worth living? And how do we best hold on to what is past?
Okay. And I can see ghosts of those ideas in the episode. And the story concept, the story in outline form is definitely not a bad story. It's just the way it's written, the way it plays out, some of the plot holes or story holes or character holes, whatever you want to call them, that we've pointed out, just bring up a series of small problems that end up being a lackluster episode, which is fine. That happens sometimes. You can't win them all. And I'm starting to feel like maybe that's enough episode bashing. I don't know how much more I want to do. I did think that it was cool to examine an upcoming officer. That story idea is not something that I think I've seen much, if at all, before in these sort of banding together against authority kind of stories where, hey, new guy, is he going to work with us or against us? Let's find out. That's an approach that you don't see very often.
Yeah, and I do like the way Corwin came down on it, because like you said, he just, he's not the, oh yeah, Clark's my guy, I don't believe it. He didn't pass any value judgments on the evidence that came out. He just said, essentially, not these exact words, but the message I got was, as a soldier, it's not my place to question orders.
And he's also talking to a superior officer that, 2 steps above him. Even if he did have anti-feelings towards President Clark, this might not be the place where he's comfortable voicing those.
Yep, entirely true. So, yeah, I think on the whole, the Lieutenant Corwin plotline, it's a great one to examine. Aside from, not really having a complete setup for the current state of the relationship between Ivanova and Marcus, I think everything else about that plotline works. We get the nice little sort of comedy of errors when you say, Ivana's going, where did these come from? Oh, I just found them right here. Someone dropped them by the door.
That's right. He didn't drop them. He was holding them, and someone was like, because there's no way Ivanova is expecting anything romantic. So why would Corwin have roses? That's doesn't even enter her mind as a possibility, because why would he?
Yeah. Especially since, from what we understand, there's no reason to believe Corwin had been previously interested in her. It just seemed like, he probably bought them because he felt like he was responding to an interest she had expressed.
Right. And it's easily one of those things where, regardless of how attractive he might find her, the fact that their working relationship was what it was, and the fact that she was his superior officer, the responsible thing to do with attractions like that is to box them away until they don't register anymore, because those people aren't available. So leave them alone,
Yeah.
And so he had probably just done that with her, didn't, think about her in that way, because why should he? And so whenever she seems to be expressing interest, he's like, oh, yeah, okay. Or maybe not. He could be gay and just humoring an interest because he thinks it's what he's supposed to do. Who knows?
Yep. Yeah, this is really our first chance to get to know him at all. So most of what we've seen from him so far is things like when the ISN reporter is interviewing, and you could see him kind of glancing out of his shoulder to make sure he's not going to get in trouble with Ivanova for the answers he's giving. So there's been no hint of romance. If anything, there's been more signs of respect and fear.
Respect and fear, yes, because Ivanova is definitely someone to fear at times. I don't think she's actually murdered anyone under her command yet.
Yeah, we'd have to check for friendly fire incidents, but so
anything else on the episode?
I like Marcus. Got a bit of amusement with his math, where there's 3 people with guns on them, and if one leaves, then there'll only be one. And Franklin questions the math.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if there was a joke I was missing, like a clue 1 + 1 + 2 + 1 kind of thing. I didn't know what that was supposed to be saying.
Well, it was a setup for exactly how he got out later, where when one person left the room, he tricked the other into knocking himself out with the Minbari fighting pike.
Okay.
And then there was only one left for Marcus.
And that's why he recited the math thing again during that part. Okay, that makes sense. Alrighty. Well, if that is everything for our league in session, then we should probably talk about what was our last best hope for this episode. And what was your last best hope for the episode?
Yeah, honestly, it's going to seem weird, and I hope it doesn't feel like more episode bashing, but the one that stood out to me was that the guest actor they had selling the roses nailed it. Like, it was a bit part, but at no point did I question the fact that this guy was going to be able to sell these incredibly expensive synthetic roses to Corwin.
Yes. That was a really good scene, a great walk-on roll.
Yeah. So that, it's not that the regulars didn't do well. I love the fact that we've actually now seen Marcus and Franklin heavily interacting, but I don't know, for some reason it's the real salesman that sticks out of my mind, although I think any other day it might have been the Marcus Franklin interaction.
Well, along a similar theme, I'm going to give it to Josh Cox's face after Ivanova has the initial invite conversation with him. And just like the eyes are bugging out of his face and he's slack-jawed, has absolutely no idea what to say or do next with himself and this set of circumstances that have suddenly found themselves on his door. Imagined circumstances, but still. He is going to Susan Ivanova's quarters for coffee. So, but that's nothing. Anyways, that brings us to giving form to the dream. And if you tell me that these parasite people are hugely germane to upcoming plots, I'm going to believe you, but I'm also going to laugh because it feels ridiculous.
There are a few elements for these guys coming forward. I don't remember this exact species coming back, but I try to remember if there is a relevance to the fact that they were constructed 500,000 years ago. So these guys didn't evolve. They are basically sentient machines with a specific purpose. So that's the part I remember. The other bits that stand out a little more to me is that, again, Marcus and Franklin have had a bit of a chance to get to know each other on the job. And then the other bit that was fairly easy to miss. One of the people who's giving Marcus updates early on says that the package you've been expecting has left Mars.
Yes, I noticed that this time would be here in 2 weeks.
Yep. So we will see that package arriving in a future episode.
Yeah, I didn't notice that the first viewing, but I did notice it the second viewing, and realizing that these episodes take place every, sometimes it's sequential days, but most often it's just a handful of days between episodes. So 2 weeks, I can see that being, anywhere from 1 to 4 episodes down the road. And since we are going into a trilogy structure over the next gap, I'm wondering if it's going to be right during then. Who knows? You know, but you're not saying.
Yes, I do know. It has nothing to do with the thing wrapped around my spine, I assure you.
All right. Well, I guess that wraps up our discussion of Exogenesis. Next week is Messages from Earth, the 8th episode of Season 3. And coming up in a couple of weeks, we're going to have our next broadcast break, and we're going to be doing a feedback special. So you should tell us what you think of these episodes. Have you been watching Babylon 5? Have you been rewatching it? Have you been watching it for the first time? Have you seen every episode 17 and a half times, and now you're telling us all about it? You let us know. There are lots of ways to get in touch with us. Blaine, what's one of them?
One of them is by email. You can email Babylon5 30 years later at gmail.com using either numerals or letters to spell the numbers. They will all work. You will only have an H in it if you spell out 30.
Yes, because there is an H in 30. You can also go to our websites where we host the show and leave comments there. My website is johnreadscomics.com, where all of my podcasting endeavors can be found. Ninjas and Bots, Superman in Crisis, Say the Magic Word, Shazam podcast. Lots of different stuff going on over there. Nothing at all that I was thinking I'd be doing whenever we first started this show. And I was trying to project into the future. None of those things that I mentioned in the early episodes are actually existing now. But there is podcast, and you should go leave a comment on this episode.
You can also leave comments at bureau42.com, where you could find all of my podcasts, as well as podcasts by a couple other people, including Dorky, Geeky, Nerdy by Brian Rollins. And Alexander Case does his anime explorations there on a monthly basis. So you can leave comments there.
And also, if you leave a review for the podcast, we will definitely be reading those and thanking you for them here on the air. We are going to be checking Apple Podcasts as a matter of course. So if you leave a review on another podcatcher, do please let us know so we can go find it and read it and thank you for it right here in front of Marcus and everybody.
Right. And you can also leave comments on our YouTube posts. So these episodes are cross-posted to YouTube. It was kind of an impulsive lark, and it turns out that we record these well in advance. We are about to record our first feedback episode in the next couple of weeks, and we've had more feedback on YouTube than anywhere else. So yes, you can leave comments there. There is a little bit of spam protection, so I might have to approve the comments, and we may not respond directly on YouTube. We will respond rather live on the feedback episodes.
All right, so that brings us to the end of our Exogenesis discussion. As I said, be back next week for Messages from Earth. So until then, thank you very much for listening.
And good eating to you.